What's up, fellow cybersecurity practitioners? Welcome to Modern Security Baby Steps, episode number 3. This Modern Security Baby Step will be all about safe links and safe attachments, which are part of Defender for Office 365. These products bring protection to email primarily, but they also bring protection across Teams and SharePoint and other parts of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem to deliver your customer with enhanced protection. It's super easy to onboard, it's super easy for users to get comfortable with, and that's what makes this an amazing baby step that you can act on right now. Let's check it out. All right, so as always, we're going to start in our Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And as always, you may need to click Show All to see the rest of the admin centers we're going to be working with. So we're going to harden 7+1 Labs a little more, as is the usual MO here. And we're going to work in the Security Center. It's known by many names. It's the Security and Compliance Center right now, though. So let's go ahead and let this load up. So today we're going to be working with policies and rules, and we're going to go to threat policies. And this is where we manage all the uh-ohs. And a lot of modern security baby steps that I work on in the future will live here. Today we're going to be working in policies. Anti-phishing is a great feature that we'll discuss in its own baby step because it does have a little more to it than the others. Anti-spam and anti-malware, Exchange Online protection out of the box. You've probably customized these before if you're already working on Microsoft tenants. If you want a video on optimizing these, let me know down below and we'll make it happen. But today we're going to be working with safe attachments and safe links. All right, so let's go ahead and start with safe attachments. Safe attachments is very cool. It's a great add-on in addition to in addition to the sort of default malware scanning that comes out of the box with Exchange Online protection, okay? So the way it works is if an attachment is a little bit suspect, according to machine learning and threat analytics and things like that, it's going to send it off to an Azure sandbox, and it's literally a Windows machine, with a bunch of super secret Microsoft technology that makes it look real, and it will open that attachment and see how it behaves, see if it does anything sus. So it will, it'll detect on a lot of PDFs, any Word docs that aren't super standard, Word docs with a lot of content or Word docs with images tend to trigger it. Scanners tend to trigger it every single time just because it's all image data in a PDF. So think about it like that. So we'll go ahead and create a policy here. With these policies, you usually just need to create one per tenant. You usually don't need to have customized rules on a per user, per group basis. I tend to just cover the whole tenant, so I'll just call this safe attachments. And when we scope these policies, we want to protect everyone, right? We want to protect everyone from malicious attachments. So I skip users and groups, and I go to domains. And the way this works is you want to add every single vanity domain in this tenant. And the only catch is you will want to come back. If you add a domain, right, you will want to come back and add the rest of your domains into this tenant. So this tenant has 7+1labs.com. It looks like there it goes. Doing this live, folks. 7+1labs.com. I do have an additional vanity domain in this tenant that we were doing some testing with. And then we want to add our on Microsoft domain. It's really important. So that default, when you made the tenant, every user typically has an alias on Microsoft domain. So if we don't protect that, it's an easy way around safe attachments. So we want to protect that domain. And then we have our options. So I encourage you to read the docs and really dive into this. If your mailboxes are online, so you don't have hybrid exchange, your users are using online mailboxes, dynamic delivery is the clear winner here. Reason being is because if that attachment is selected for sandboxing, it's still going to deliver the email, right? So we're not slowing down the process of receiving the email. It's going to be delivered to the user with I call it a placeholder attachment. Basically, when you open it, it says, hey, we're scanning this, give us a minute. I think worst case scenario is probably going to be 5 minutes. But the cool thing is, let's say I'm on the phone with someone and say, hey, send that over now. I'll take a look. I'm still going to get the email. So I'm not wondering, where's the email, whatever. I get the email, and then it's going to tell me that attachment has been selected for scanning, and it's going to take a couple minutes. Once the scanning is complete, if the file is safe, Microsoft will actually go back into that very same message in the mailbox and reattach the original attachment, which is super cool. That's the dynamic part of dynamic delivery, right? So it's a very powerful functionality to keep mail coming, but make sure those attachments are scanned when they need to be. If it turns out to be malicious, it'll attach a new placeholder attachment that says, hey, this is malicious. Contact IT if you've got questions, but you can't have this attachment, right? False positives are rare with this service. It's a very good service. If it does happen, resend it. And if it false positives twice, there's probably something wrong with it that maybe the sender doesn't know about or something like that. So keep that in mind. And quarantine policy, we're not going to dive into the full quarantine capabilities built into Microsoft in this video. Admin only simply means me, the user, cannot just go release an attachment that was deemed malicious. So I use admin only. Enable redirect. This is an interesting setting, all right? Microsoft recommends you have it on, but when you do have it on and something's detected, that message is going here, whatever you put here, whatever email address you put here. So I've seen people use ticket queues. I've seen people use, junk mailboxes. Keep in mind you're saving copies of malware at that point, right? And probably pretty advanced malware if it was detected in sandboxing. So with that in mind, when I turn this off, which is what I tend to do, in the event the service is down, which is rare but does happen, if the service is down, then it's possible that I'll lose some attachments. So you really have to have that conversation with yourself and with the customer and decide what's more expensive for the customer and risky for the customer. Having malware detonate in the environment, something like ransomware, or losing a couple attachments. And honestly, there's times where it's a tougher decision, but for me, I'm always going to lean towards let's deal with a missing attachment every now and again if we need to. And that brings us to this setting. It says, if there is something wrong with the service, what do? Strip the attachment is my vote. We don't want the service to be down and then malware to start slipping through. So I always leave this checked. Next. And it's really going to want us to enable redirect, folks. But again, I don't like it. But you can, like it says, messages might just be lost. And in the case of dynamic delivery, attachments might just be lost, right? So we'll submit here. And it will take a minute to actually create the policy for us. All right, and here's our new safe attachments policy. So our new policy, safe attachments, has been created. We'll go back to view safe attachments policies. And it will show our policy here in a moment. We are doing this live, folks. The demo gods are getting at me. The portal's a little slow today. All right, and here is our safe attachments policy. You can see it's turned on, priority 0. These are orderable, but again, we made one policy that targets everyone, so we're good. So we're going to go back to threat policies here, and we're going to address safe links. So safe links are in-content link rewriting, right? So in an email, external email, I received the message, it changes it to, protection.outlook.com. It's a live scanning service, so it scans on click. It's very powerful. But the cool thing is I can also use safe links in Teams, in documents. So the classic phishing workaround of attach the link in a Word document, right, can be stopped with a safe links policy, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to call this policy safe links. Again, one policy per tenant is going to cover most scenarios, particularly as a baby step. Same exact process as before. We're going to take all of our domains and stick them in here, including our on Microsoft domain. And here's what we do. So select action for unknown, potentially malicious URLs. We want them to be rewritten, right? We want them to inspect those URLs. Unknown, potentially malicious URL within Teams. So you see what I mean? Now we have that protection in Teams. It's a very, very powerful functionality. So in messages means email, and this means Teams. Do we want to apply real-time URL? Yes. So if we're sending a link to a zip or an executable or a Word doc or a PDF or whatever, we want to scan the file that goes to. So what it's going to do is it's going to follow that link and say, oh, that's PDF. Let me check it out. And it will make sure that PDF is safe. Now, this setting here, wait for URL scanning, goes back to that dynamic delivery conversation. If for example, the service is a little slow. Again, it might take a couple of minutes on average. Worst case scenario 5. It would delay the message. And again, I don't like to delay the message because I find it much easier to teach end users, hey, it might look like this for a minute. That's because the security service is doing this thing. It's a much better experience than where the heck is my email, right? So what'll happen is they'll click the link. They'll get a page that says, hey, give us just a minute. We're seeing if this link is malicious. Easy peasy, right? I like to apply safe links to emails, messages sent within the organization, right? Let's say a user gets compromised, or let's say, someone just accidentally or maybe nefariously sends a bad link, right? So we're applying that protection across the board to include within the environment itself. I do track user clicks, check laws, check with lawyers, that kind of thing, but I track user clicks because I want to have that data on where users are clicking. Now, this is a big one. A lot of us have skipped Chrome certificate errors or things like that. If we let users click through to the original URL, they're going to do it just about every time. So I don't allow it, okay? I just don't. We make them wait for the scanning. We explain to them why the scanning is very important and why they need to wait for it. And if, again, the false positive rate on this is super low, so it shouldn't be much of an issue. If you have your company branded, perfect. Go ahead and display that. Personally, I recommend it. Just shows that, hey, our company is doing this security for you. And then do not rewrite URLs. I'm not a fan of this, but the way this works is in Outlook, for example, it doesn't really rewrite the URL, but it knows when I click the link and it does the scanning in the background before the link opens. I like to just rewrite it. That way, if I'm using an unsupported client or something goofs up with the API, it doesn't have any issues. So I always use rewrite URLs. And then here you can exempt a list of URLs. You want to keep this list as short as possible, but a common scenario, let's say they're using like Salesforce that's generating dynamic links and emailing them on the fly. You might want to exclude your company's Salesforce domain just to avoid, waiting in those scenarios. But for the most part, I leave this completely empty. But again, there are scenarios where you may want to whitelist some URLs. So I use default notification text, but you can customize what it looks like when they see a notification, when they click and something's wrong, maybe it's waiting, whatever. I just use the default. And again, I train users on what to look for when they click links. Next, same thing, submit. We'll let this policy save and we'll see what it looks like. All right, and we've got our new safe links policy, and that's it. We've just in that amount of time have enabled both safe attachments and safe links within our tenant, right? So the one drawback, and I do want to be totally transparent here, there is a drawback for MSPs and ITSPs and the like, and that it's difficult right now to manage safe links and attachments in a multi-tenant format. Lighthouse should solve for a lot of that as it matures, but just keep in mind that managing across tenants, safe links and safe attachments and other Defender for 365 features can be a little tricky. You'll find yourself getting into tenants a little more often. Innovations like Lighthouse and GDAP will solve for that. So that's it. That's this modern security baby step. Safe links, safe attachments. Try it out. Let me know how it goes down in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a blog post below where I talk through a little bit more of this logic, how it works, those kind of things. So we'll see you on the next modern security baby step.